Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Unbridled Equestrian Podcast. Today's episode came together because I've basically had the exact same conversation with three different people in the last week, and it's made me realize okay, this confusion is way more common than I realized, and something that we should really be discussing. So, we're talking about the debate between massage versus chiropractic care, when to use each one, when they overlap, and why personal preference should never be the deciding factor between the two modalities. Because here's the thing I am seeing again and again: a lot of owners have a favorite modality, and then they want to apply it to every situation without necessarily considering or understanding what their horse is actually dealing with. And of course, that's not because they don't care, quite the opposite. It's just because nobody's ever really explained the difference in an understandable and practical way. So today, we're going to do exactly that and dig into the two. No guilt, no shaming, no, this modality is better than that. Just what problem does your horse actually have? What system is being affected? And what professional is actually trained to address that system in a meaningful way? Because if the goal is for your horse to be more comfortable, for us to gain clarity, and ideally not to be throwing money down the drain, we have to get a little more precise in how we're approaching these questions. I want to start with an analogy. And I think it might help this concept land for you if this sounds a little bit confusing. So, if we think about I have a problem with my foot, I'm not going to go to an eye doctor. And similarly, if I have a problem with my eyes, I'm not going to go to a dentist. Now, not because those professionals aren't amazing, but because they specialize in completely different systems of the body. And horses are no different. When we think about chiropractic care, that's really designed to address the skeletal system and joint alignment. Whereas massage and most forms of traditional body work are actually addressing our soft tissue structures, their muscle, fascia, connective tissue, and sometimes the nervous system. Now, neither one is better than the other, and neither is more holistic, and also neither works if it's being applied to the wrong problem. The challenge is what I hear consistently is like, I only do massage, I don't believe in chiro, or I only do chiro, massage doesn't really work for me or my horse. Or my horse is stiff, so he needs chiro, or my horse is crooked, so I'm going to get him a massage. Unfortunately, none of these statements necessarily takes into consideration what the horse is actually dealing with internally and what they really need in order to help them move through that problem. If we start about thinking about chiropractic care, or in BC, it's referred to as spinal manipulation therapy, that's all about skeletal alignment and joint motion. So if we think about a joint, when it is restricted or misaligned, it's not moving through its normal range of motion. Now, that can affect everything downstream, including soft tissue structures. A chiropractor is really trained to assess joint motion, identify restrictions, and restore movement and alignment to the horse's skeletal structure. That's not about muscles being tight, it's about bones and joints not being functional or aligning in the way that they're designed to. That can lead to a lot of mechanical issues. Some common signs that your horse might need chiropractic care include things like persistent crookedness that doesn't resolve with conditioning. It can be unevenness or crookedness that kind of shows up more suddenly. It can look like one-sided resistance, especially if it wasn't there before. Even sometimes difficulty bending or tracking evenly in one direction. Also, look for sudden changes in your horse's way of going or in the way that they are responding to typical training. If we're having reluctance to picking up or holding a lead or difficulty in our transitions that were previously easy, that can be a clear sign that we might need some chiropractic. Even sometimes visible lumps in the spine itself can be a dead giveaway, especially if they weren't there before. So here are some common causes of skeletal alignment issues that you might want to think about when it comes to your horse, because here's what really matters. These things really do happen all the time, and they can be the reason your horse is struggling. We want to know so we can get to the bottom of it. Things like slipping in turnout, rolling awkwardly, getting cast in their stall, getting up weird from lying down even. Sometimes they're playing really hard in their paddock or with a buddy, trailering, slipping on wet or frozen footing, especially this time of year. Sometimes they caught their leg on a fence, or they had an awkward jump or a sudden spook or a stop. Even saddle fitting issues as well as our own symmetry as riders can really make a big difference. Same as if we've had a fall or if the horse has had a fall. So these are mechanical events and they end up affecting the horse's skeletal structures in their joints. Massage might help in making your horse feel temporarily better, but it's really not geared towards fixing or adjusting the misalignment in the skeletal structure or joint. On the other hand, if we talk about massage and soft tissue body work, that's really geared at addressing muscles and tension, their fascia, connective tissue, their circulatory system, and can even address your horse's nervous system. If we think about massage or bodywork, it's typically at addressing tension, soreness, fatigue, and sometimes even adaptation, which might be the result of a chiropractic issue. Now, massage is an incredibly powerful tool, especially when used correctly. And the signs for that are a little bit different. So, if your horse is experiencing general muscle tightness, if they're stiff, if you're seeing muscle soreness, especially after harder work, or sensitivity when you're grooming them or to the touch, sometimes it looks like resistance that actually improves as your horse warms up. It can be changes in their top line or their muscle tone or structure. It can also look like tension in their neck or their back or their hindquarters and can also manifest as behavioral changes under saddle, especially if we're seeing those behavioral changes without any mechanical cause that might require chiropractic. So, some common causes of soft tissue discomfort can look like increased workload. So, are you guys doing more collected work, more extended work? Are you jumping higher or more frequently than you were before? Is there any real change in the intensity of your horse's training level that might make them a bit sore? Sometimes even conditioning after time off, even if it's not a lot of time, that can make a difference, including if they're learning new movements, if they've changed disciplines, and also if you're having saddle fit issues that can cause major muscle guarding. And for us as riders, if we're imbalanced, that can really lead to a lot of changes for your horse as well. Now, sudden temperature changes this time of year, the cold, dehydration, even electrolyte, mineral, and vitamin deficiencies or feed changes, they can also cause muscle soreness. So, if your horse is experiencing stress, not drinking as much, anything like that, they can all create issues in our soft tissue and fascia we would want to address with massage. Now, when we talk about things like that, those are physiological stressors, not skeletal ones. So, massage is really geared towards helping your horse's tissues recover, helping them relax, helping them adapt, and helping them function more efficiently and stay loose. So, again, massage doesn't correct joint alignment. So the two really aren't interchangeable. But again, massage doesn't correct joint alignment. So let's talk about why our personal preference is the wrong deciding factor for which modality to use. And here's where things can get a bit sticky because I would say almost every client I've spoken to has some version of, I just prefer massage, or I don't believe in chiropractic, or I only believe in chiropractic. And here's the hard truth because although we may have strong ideas or preferences around bodywork modalities, there's just no substitute for your horse getting what they actually need. And really, that means that liking a modality or using it because your trainer does or because it worked for somebody else in the barn doesn't make it the appropriate treatment for your horse or their particular issues at any point in time. And those issues can change from 1 month or week to the next. If your horse, for example, has a joint and skeletal restriction and you keep doing massage because it's your preferred modality, you might be soothing symptoms while the root cause doesn't go away. Or even worse, you might be throwing your money away completely because the minor relief that your horse gets from massage or bodywork isn't touching the underlying discomfort that the skeletal misalignment is creating for them. That's where we really have to get particular about who we're choosing for these different treatment protocols. Now, if your horse is sore from hard work and you keep doing chiropractic, you're also probably not going to see the results that you want because you might be adjusting joints that weren't really the issue in the first place, or paying for sessions that don't make a difference because ultimately they aren't geared at addressing the cause of your horse's problems at the moment. And unfortunately, this is how problems end up lingering for longer than they need to. We as riders end up wasting money And so often it leads to so much additional frustration because we can't get to the root of the problem and the horse isn't getting better. This is how horses wind up staying stuck in cycles of discomfort longer than necessary, and how we wind up feeling more frustrated and wasting more money. Ultimately, the goal is never to pick a side. It's really to match the correct tool with the problem that your horse is experiencing so that they get the relief that they need. Now, with that said, there's also going to be times when your horse needs both chiropractic and bodywork. And there's some nuance here because often one problem will create another. And this is where taking a more holistic approach to care really shines for our horses, because there are many situations where a horse has chiropractic issues and the joint restriction that they're experiencing and the discomfort from that causes compensatory muscle tension and postural changes that can create more discomfort. And then both need to be addressed. Sometimes we see long-term misalignment that also leads to more chronic muscle guarding and postural changes. Even saddle fit issues can really create both joint and muscle pain. Similarly, like if your horse has a slip or a fall, we can have alignment issues as well as soft tissue trauma. In those cases, we want chiropractic to restore proper joint function and motion, and then we want the body work and massage to help with the soft tissue releases and help our fascia and our muscles adapt to the new alignment that we've created. And in these cases, one without the other can really limit the results that we get. And if we have tightness and tension in our soft tissue, and then we correct the chiropractic need, that tension can still pull things out of alignment. True collaboration between modalities and equine professionals can really make all the difference for your horse here. And it pays to keep a really open mind around what your horse actually needs. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a framework to determine if your horse might need one or the other. So if we're seeing a change in behavior that's kind of come on suddenly, that might require chiro versus if something's developed more gradually or with a change in workload. Oftentimes, that might be more of a massage related issue. If we're seeing symmetry, like asymmetry specifically, that can be chiro quite often. But if your horse is maybe stiff and then they improve as they warm up, we want to think soft tissue for that. So as the muscles and tendons warm up, they get more malleable. That usually tells us that there's tension in those structures to begin with. Now, if we know the horse has had a mechanical incident, so like a slip, a fall, a spook, we saw them bucking like crazy in the paddock, they were bucking on the lunge line, they may have thrown something out of alignment and then they often need chiro. But if we're seeing an increase in the horse's workload, maybe their stress, what we're asking of them, the difficulty of their work, chances are they might be experiencing some tension in their soft tissue and need massage. So ultimately, if we break it down, you can always talk to your vet, your body worker, any professional that you trust who's intimately familiar with these modalities and see what they recommend. Now, I do think it's important to discuss the fact that a lot of equine professionals will not necessarily offer advice on this. It's the kind of question you often need to ask directly. Do you think my horse needs chiro or massage to help with this issue? Because a lot of equine professionals don't want to step out their lane, so to speak. And the challenge is if we don't ask the right questions, our horse can wind up stuck in these patterns of pain or discomfort a lot longer than necessary. Because it's really common that I see somebody who just saw the vet last week and they didn't mention anything about the vertebrae that were out of alignment and the horse's back pain. But if they were there to look at your horse's feet or your horse's leg, they're not going to be checking the horse's back at the same time. So it's really important that we educate ourselves, ask the right questions so that we can make the right decisions around which modality of treatment is best for our horse at any given time. We don't want to look at what Instagram says. We don't want to go with just what our trainer prefers for their horses or what's worked for someone else in the barn. Because ultimately, each horse is totally unique, and the issues that they're experiencing with their body are as well. And they can change from 1 week to the next, 1 month to the next, etc. If there's one thing that you take away from this episode, it's really that good care isn't just about loyalty to a particular modality or a particular practitioner. Not to say you shouldn't be loyal to your practitioners, absolutely. However, we need to have clarity on what your horse is actually dealing with and what they need in order to restore balance in their bodies. Because massage and chiro are both tools. They're not belief systems. And so when we choose the right tool for the right job, your horse gets to be more comfortable a lot faster. We see problems resolve completely as opposed to just sort of band-aiding them. And we get to spend our money more wisely where it's actually going to make the biggest difference for our horse. Also, it helps us feel less confused and less helpless because we're not struggling with an ongoing problem that we feel we've tried to address with a modality of treatment that just wasn't correct. So, if this episode helped anything click for you, I'd love for you to share it with a barn friend. Send it to somebody who's maybe been stuck in the massage versus chiro debate, or they're using one and not really having results. There may be good reason for that. Share this episode and keep learning about your horse, their needs, and all of the things that you can do to enjoy your partnership to the fullest. As always, stay curious, stay unbridled, and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.